गोविंद गोपीनाथ मरण मोहन जी की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद शतर शतश्मद शिल भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज शिल गुरुदेव की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद शतर शतश्मद शिल भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद शतर शतश्मद शिल भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद शतर शतश्मद शिल भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद शतर शतश्मद शिल भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल विष्णु महाभागवत शिल गोक्षरस बाबा जी महाराज की जय। नितिल विष्णु शिल सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नितिल विष्णु वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबा जी महाराज की जय। श्री रूपनु गौरिय गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल पतदास रघुनाथ शार गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर प्रसाद वृंद की जय। नाम चय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय राधिकाय प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायणीति नामिने। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरतिशे नमः। गुरुवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकाय तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तरभक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तम् अनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुस्तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। शृण्वतं स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तन हृदन्तस्थो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतं। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भागवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे त्वां नयमां चरणान्तिकम्। भक्त्या विहीन अपराधलक्षय क्षिप्ताष्टकामादितरङ्गमध्ये कृपामयि त्वं शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दम्। भज श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। I'm a bit late today because I was having trouble with the internet. I'm actually on my mobile internet right now, so let me know if the connection ever gets bad. Yeah, that's why I was multitasking with Manjari. It's because I was rushing. Dandavat pranams Manjari Didi, Prajumna Prabhu, Mantramurti Mataji, Dandavat pranams Seshwari Mataji, Ganga Didi, Prajumna Prabhu, and Madhavi Didi, Dandavat pranams. Hari Bol. Alright, so we finished this chapter 4, the Hangsa Guhya prayers. So we heard about, I'll just read this again, even though we've read it so many times, but it's always good to get a feel where we are when we begin. Pariksha inquires from Shukadev about Visarga, and so the secondary creation. And so then Shukadev Goswami tells about continuing from the 4th canto, when Shukadev Goswami is talking about the Prachetas. This is the second time he's telling us. When the Prachetas emerged from the waters, they saw that the trees had covered the earth. In anger, they emanated fire and winds from their mouths and burnt the trees to ashes. Soma felt sympathy for the trees, and he told the Prachetas, "Do not kill the trees created by the Lord for the maintenance of the people. Follow the path traversed by your predecessors and control your anger. See all beings as the Lord's abode and transcend the modes. Accept Marisha as your wife." So then the Prachetas marry Marisha, and they beget Daksha. And Daksha then creates the demigods, demons, beasts, and so on. He's a progenitor. Seeing that the population was not increasing, Daksha performed austerities at Agamarshan and offered the Hangsa Guhya prayers to the Lord. And so then we read the Hangsa Guhya prayers. Yesterday we went through all of them, but I'll just go through this thing. The Transcendental Lord has unlimited knowledge, but the Jiva has limited knowledge. The Lord has personal and impersonal forms. Material forms do not arise from the Lord's Swarup. The statements of Bhakti and Gyan scriptures are not contradictory. The Lord's names and forms are transcendental, but he appears in lower forms also. The Lord appeared, so then after those Hangsa Guhya prayers, the Lord appeared in his beautiful form accompanied by the sages and demigods. Daksha offered Dandavat and and he just stayed down there in Dandavats for a long time, right? And he became pleased. And then the Lord spoke to him. Let's actually just read from this point on. So 43. What did the Lord speak to him? Let's see. The Lord said, "Your life is successful because of your austerities by which you have attained devotion, through your great faith directed to me. I am pleased with you because you are endeavoring by your austerities to fulfill my desire for increasing the population of the world. You are all my vibhutis. Brahma, Shiva, the Manus, the demigods, and you, Prajapatis, are working for everyone's welfare by increasing the population. You are expansions of my marginal energy and incarnations of my various qualities." Now, the Lord's form according to Karma Yoga. So this is the Lord's form according to Karma Yoga. My heart, according to Karma Yoga, is austerity in the form of meditation. My body, in Karma Yoga, is Vedic knowledge as hymns and mantras. My actual form are spiritual activities and ecstatic emotions. My limbs are the ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices. My mind is unseen good fortune resulting from sacrifices. And my life heirs are the demigods who execute my orders. So that's according to Karma Yoga. Now the Lord's form according to Bhakti Yoga. I alone existed before the creation. I alone will exist after the creation, and I alone exist now. Nothing exists outside me or inside of me. Now the Lord's form according to Jnana Yoga. I am pure consciousness, imperceptible to the senses, just as one's consciousness is unmanifested during sleep. I am all-pervading. I am the reservoir of unlimited potency. I am all-pervading, and my spirit and my material energy, the cosmic manifestation, appeared within me. Then Brahma and others appeared. So first the material energy appears within the Lord, and then Brahma and others appear. I instructed Brahma to perform austerities when he felt himself incapable to create. Then he underwent difficult austerities by which he was able to create 9 personalities, including you, to help him in the functions of creation. Accept Asikni, the daughter of Prajapati Panchajan, as your wife. Unite with her in sexual life, and you will be able to beget hundreds of children in her womb to increase the population. There's a note here. Though the Lord mercifully showed Daksha his form, he cast Daksha into the path of karma and material enjoyments, and not into the sweet ocean of his prema. That is because the influence of his offense to the great devotee Shiva had not been completely removed. The Lord continues, your children will also be captivated by my Maya, and will engage like you in sexual intercourse. However, because of my mercy, they will also offer presentations to me in devotion. After speaking in this way, the Lord immediately disappeared as if he were the object experienced in a dream. Now we're going to hear about how Prajapati Daksha cursed Nārada Muni. Didn't even learn his lesson with that whole incident with cursing Lord Shiva. My God, that's the danger of when you criticize Vaishnavas, when you make aparad, it doesn't stop. It continues and continues and continues. It's like a muscle. It goes bigger and bigger and bigger. Even after having the Lord's darshan, still Prajapati Daksha couldn't give up this tendency to criticize and offend Vaishnavas. That's why the Lord disengaged him. Even though he had direct darshan of the Lord disengaged him in karma and all his family and everything. Alright, let's begin. Let's change the color to something more light. Is that better? I don't know which one's better, sepia or gray. I'm going to do gray. Nārada Muni cursed by Prajapati Daksha. This chapter relates how all the sons of Daksha were delivered from the clutches of the material energy by following the advice of Nārada, who was therefore cursed by Daksha. Let me just make sure the internet's still working. Okay, I'm going to need to keep on checking every now and then since I'm going to keep on checking because I'm using my phone internet, so it's a lot less stable. Wait a second, let me reread that. This chapter relates how all the sons of Daksha were delivered from the clutches of material energy by following the advice of Nārada, who was therefore cursed by Daksha. Okay. Influenced by the external energy of Lord Vishnu, Prajapati Daksha begot 10,000 sons in the womb of his wife, Panchajani. These sons, who were all of the same character and mentality, were known as the Haryaśvas. Ordered by their father to create more and more population, the Haryaśvas went west to the place where the river Sindhu, now the Indus, meets with the Arabian Sea. In those days, this was the site of a holy lake named Narayana Saras, where there were many saintly persons. The Haryaśvas began practicing austerities, penances, and meditation, which are the engagements of the highly exalted, renounced order of life. However, when Srila Nārada Muni saw these boys engaged in such commendable austerities simply for material creation, he thought it better to release them from this tendency. Narad Muni described to the boys their ultimate goal of life and advised them not to become ordinary karmis to beget children. Thus, all the sons of Daksha became enlightened and left, never to return. Prajapati Daksha, who was very sad at the loss of his sons, begot 1,000 more sons in the womb of his wife Panchajani, and ordered them to increase progeny. These sons, who were named the Haryaśvas, also engaged in worshipping Lord Vishnu to beget children, but Narad Muni convinced them to become mendicants and not beget children. Foiled twice in his attempts to increase population, Prajapati Daksha became most angry at Narad Muni and cursed him, saying that in the future he would not be able to stay anywhere. Since Narad Muni, being fully qualified, was fixed in tolerance, he accepted Daksha's curse. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Tasyang sa panchajanyam vai Vishnu mayo pabrimhita Haryaśvas samgyan ayutam putran ajanayar vibhu. Srila Shukadev Goswami continued, impelled by the illusory energy of Lord Vishnu, Prajapati Daksha begot 10,000 sons in the womb of Panchajani, Asikni. My dear king, these sons were called the Haryaśvas. Apritag dharmashilaste sarva dakshayana nripa pitra prokta praja sarge pratichim prayayurdisham. My dear king, all the sons of Prajapati Daksha were alike in being very gentle and obedient to the orders of their father. When their father ordered them to beget children, they all went in the western direction. Tatra Narayana Saras Tirtam Sindhu Samudrayo Sangramo Yatra Sumahan Muni Siddha Nishevitam. In the west, where the river Sindhu meets the sea, there is a great place of pilgrimage known as Narayana Saras. Many sages and others advanced in spiritual consciousness live there. There's a line missing. So let's... Okay. Dang it. Okay, let me just try putting it in this. Okay. Tarupasparshanareva Vinirdhuta Malashaya Dharme Paramahangsecha Protpanna Matayo Pyuta Te Pire Tapa Eva Gram Pitra Deshena Yantrita Praja Vivridaye Yatan Devarishis Dadarshaha. In that holy place, the Haryaśvas began regularly touching the lake's waters and bathing in them. Gradually, becoming very much purified, they became inclined toward the activities of Paramahamsas. Nevertheless, because their father had ordered them to increase the population, they performed severe austerities to fulfill his desires. One day, when the great sage Nārada saw those boys performing such fine austerities to increase the population, Nārada approached them. Uvacha chata Haryaśva katam shakshyata vai praja adrishtvantam bhuyo yuyan balisha batapalaka tataika purusham rashtran pilam chadrishta nirgamam bahurupam striyam chapi pumangsam pungshalipatim nadim ubhayato vaham panchadbhutam griham Vajradhangsam Chitrakatam Kshorapavyam Swayam Brahmi. I needed to take it out of this view because For some reason, when I have it in reading view and there's multiple shlokas in the text, it hides some of the lines. So that's why I have to have it like that. So the great sage Nārada said, "My dear Haryaśvas, you have not seen the extremities of the earth. There is a kingdom where only one man lives, and where there is a hole from which, having entered, no one emerges. A woman there, who is extremely unchaste, adorns herself with various attractive dresses, and the man who lives there is her husband. In that kingdom, there is a river flowing in both directions, a wonderful home made of 25 materials, a swan that vibrates various sounds, and an automatically revolving object made of sharp razors and thunderbolts. You have not seen all this, and therefore you are inexperienced boys without advanced knowledge. How then will you create progeny?" This is an allegorical example. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Narad Muni saw that the boys known as the Haryaśvas were already purified because of living in that and were practically ready for liberation. Why then should they be encouraged to become entangled in family life, which is so dark that once having entered it, one cannot leave it? Through this analogy, Narad Muni asked them to consider why they should follow their father's order to be entangled in family life. Indirectly, he asked them to find within the cores of their hearts the situation of the Supersoul, Lord Vishnu, for then they would be truly experienced. In other words, one who is too involved in his material environment does not look within. That person does not look within the core of his heart. He doesn't look within the core of his heart, which is increasingly entangled in illusory energy. Narad Muni's purpose was to get the sons of Prajapati Daksha to divert their attention towards spiritual realization instead of involving themselves in the ordinary but complicated affairs of propagation. The same advice was given by Prahlad Maharaj to his father. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 7.5.5. Tat sadhu manye asuravarya dehinam sada samudvigna dhyam asad grahat hitvatmapatam grihamandakupam vanam gato yad dharimashrayeta. And the dark well of family life, one is always full of anxiety because of having accepted a temporary body. If one wants to free himself from this anxiety, one should immediately leave family life and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Vrindavan. Narad Muni advised the Haryaśvas not to enter household life. Since they were already advanced in spiritual knowledge, why should they be entangled in that way? Katam sapupitur adesham avidvangsho vipaschita anurupam avigyaya aho sargam karishyata. Let me check the internet still working. It looks like it is. Great. Alas, your father is omniscient, but you do not know his actual order. Without knowing the actual purpose of your father, how will he create progeny? Shri Shuka Uvacha Tan Nishamyata Haryaśva Outpatika Manishaya Vachakutam Tudevarshe Swayam Vimam Rishurdhiya. Shri Shukadev Goswami said, hearing these enigmatic, is that how you say it? It means like cryptic, right? Enigmatic words of Narad Muni, Haryaśvas considered them with natural intelligence, without help from others. Wait, let's just see what the dictionary definition is. Difficult to interpret or understand. Okay, mysterious, puzzling. So the Haryaśvas considered them with their natural intelligence, without help from others. Bhukshetram jiva sangyam yad anadine jabandhanam adrishtva tasya nirvanam kim asat karma bhir bhavet. The Haryaśvas understood the meaning of Nārada's words as follows. The word bhu, the earth, refers to the field of activities. The material body, which is a result of the living being's actions, is his field of activities, and it gives him false designations. Since time immemorial, he has received various types of material bodies, which are the roots of bondage to the material world. If one foolishly engages in temporary fruitive activities and does not look toward the cessation of this bondage, what will be the benefit of his actions? Purport. Nārada Muni spoke to the Haryaśvas, the sons of Prajapati Daksha, about 10 allegorical subjects: the king, the kingdom, the river, the house, the physical elements, and so forth. After considering these by themselves, the Haryaśvas should understand. They could understand that the living entity engaged in his body seeks happiness, but takes no interest in how to become free from his engagement. This is a very important verse, since all the living entities in the world are very active, having obtained their particular types of bodies. A man works all day and night for sense gratification, and animals like hogs and dogs also work for sense gratification all day and night. Birds, beasts, and all other conditioned living entities engage in various activities without knowledge of the soul encaged within the body. Especially in the human form of body, one's duty is to act in such a way that he can release himself from his engagement, but without the instructions of Nārada or his representative in the disciplic succession, people blindly engage in bodily activities to enjoy maya sukha, flickering temporary happiness. They do not know how to become free from their material engagement. Rishabhadev therefore said that such activity is not at all good, since it engages the soul again and again in a body subjected to the threefold miseries of the material condition. The material condition. The Haryaśvas, the sons of Prajapati Daksha, could immediately understand the purport of Nārada's instructions. Our Krishna consciousness movement is especially meant for such enlightenment. We are trying to enlighten humanity so that people may come to the understanding that they should work hard in tapasya for self-realization and freedom from continuous bondage of birth, death, old age, and disease in one body after another. Maya, however, is very strong. She is expert in putting impediments in the way of this understanding. Therefore, sometimes one comes to the Krishna consciousness movement, but again falls into the clutches of Maya, not understanding the importance of this movement. Eke eveshvarasturyo bhagavan swashraya para tam adrishtva bhavam pungsam kem asat karma bir bhavet. Nārada Muni said that there is a kingdom where there is only one male. The Haryaśvas realized the purport of the only enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who observes everything everywhere. He is full of 6 opulences and fully independent of everyone else. He is never subject to the 3 modes of material nature, for he is always transcendental to this material creation. If the members of human society do not understand him, the Supreme, through their advancement in knowledge and activities, but simply work very hard like cats and dogs all day and night for temporary happiness, what will be the benefit of their activities? Purport. Nārada Muni had mentioned a kingdom where there is one king with no competitor. The complete spiritual world, and specifically the cosmic manifestation, has only one proprietor or enjoyer, that is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond this material manifestation. The Lord has therefore been described as Turya, existing on the 4th platform. He has also been described as Abhava. The word bhava, which means takes birth, comes from the word bhu, to be. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 8:19, bhutva bhutva praliyate. The living entities in the material world must be repeatedly born and destroyed. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, is neither bhutva nor praliyate. He is eternal. He is neither born nor destroyed, bhutva or praliyate. He is eternal. In other words, he is not obliged to take birth like human beings or animals, which repeatedly take birth and die because of ignorance of the soul. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is not subject to such changes of body, and one who thinks otherwise is considered a fool. Avajananti mam muda manushram tanum ashritam. Bhagavad Gita 9:11. Nārada Muni advises that human beings not waste their time simply jumping like cats and monkeys without real benefit. The duty of the human being is to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pumanavaiti yad gatva bila sargam gato yata pratyagdhama vida iha kem asat karma bhir bhavet. Nārada Muni describes that there is a bila, or hole, from which having one does not return. The Haryaśvas understood the meaning of this allegory. Hardly once has a person who has entered the lower planetary systems called Patala been seen to return. Similarly, if one enters the Vaikuntha Dham, Pratyag Dham, he does not return to this material world. If there is such a place from which, having gone, one does not return to the miserable material condition of life, what is the use of jumping like monkeys in the temporary material world and not seeing or understanding that place? What will be the profit? Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 15.6, Yad gatva na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. There is a region from which, having gone, one does not return to the material world. This region has been repeatedly described. Elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita 4.9, Krishna says, Janma karma chame devyam evam yo veti tatvata tyakta deham punarma naiti mam eti sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. If one can properly understand Krishna, who has already been described as a supreme king, he does not return here after giving up his material body. This fact has been described in this verse of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Puman navaiti yad gatva. He does not return to this material world, but returns home back to Godhead, to live an eternally blissful life of knowledge. Why do people not care about this? What will be the benefit of taking birth again in this material world, sometimes as a human being, sometimes as a demigod, and sometimes as a cat or dog? What is the benefit of wasting time in this way? Krishna has very definitely asserted in Bhagavad Gita 8.15, Mamupetya punarjanma dukhalayam ashashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana sangsiddhim paramam gata. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. One's real concern should be to free himself from the repetition of birth and death and attain the topmost perfection of life by living with the Supreme King in the spiritual world. In these verses, the sons of Daksha repeatedly say, King asat karma bir bhavet. What is the use of impermanent fruitive activities? Nana rupatmano buddhi svarniva gunanvita tadnishtam agatasyeha king asat karma bhir bhavet. Nārada Muni had described a woman who is a professional prostitute. The Haryaśvas understood the identity of this woman. Mixed with the mode of passion, the unsteady intelligence of every living entity is like a prostitute who changes dresses just to attract one's attention. If one fully engages in temporary fruitive activities, not understanding how this is taking place, what does he actually gain? Purport. A woman who has no husband declares herself independent, which means that she becomes a prostitute. A prostitute generally dresses herself in various fashions intended to attract a man's attention to the lower part of her body. Today, it has become a much advertised fashion for a woman to go almost naked, covering the lower part of her body only slightly, in order to draw attention of a man to her private parts for sexual enjoyment. The intelligence engaged to attract a man to the lower part of the body is the intelligence of a professional prostitute. Similarly, the intelligence of a living entity who does not turn his attention toward Krishna or the Krishna consciousness movement simply changes dresses like a prostitute. What is the benefit of such foolish intelligence? One should be intelligently conscious of in such a way that he need no longer change from one body to another. Karmis change their professions at any moment, but a Krishna-conscious person does not change his profession, for his only profession is to attract the attention of Krishna by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and living a very simple life without following daily changes of fashion. In our Krishna consciousness movement, fashionable persons are taught to adopt one fashion, the dress of a Vaishnav, with a shaved head and tilak. They are taught to be always clean in mind, dress and eating in order to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. What is the use of changing one's dress, sometimes wearing long hair and a long beard, and sometimes dressing otherwise? This is not good. One should not waste his time in such frivolous activities. One should always be fixed in Krishna consciousness and take the cure of devotional service with firm determination. Checking the internet. Looks like it's going. Tatsanga bhrangshitaishwaryam sangsarantam kubharyavat targatir abhudasyeha kemasat karmabhir bhavet. Nārada Muni had also spoken of a man who is the husband of the prostitute. The Haryaśvas understood this as follows. If one becomes the husband of a prostitute, he loses all independence. Similarly, if a living entity has polluted his intelligence, he prolongs his materialistic life. Frustrated by material nature, he must follow the movements of the intelligence, which brings various conditions of happiness and distress. If one performs fruitive activities under such conditions, what will be the benefit? Purport. Polluted intelligence has been compared to a prostitute. One who has not purified his intelligence is said to be controlled by that prostitute. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 2:41, Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana. Those who are actually serious are conducted by one kind of intelligence, namely, intelligence in Krishna consciousness. Bahushaka yanantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam. One who is not fixed in proper intelligence discovers many modes of life. Thus involved in material activities, he is exposed to the different modes of material nature and subjected to various varieties of so-called happiness and distress. If a man becomes the husband of a prostitute, he cannot be happy, and similarly, one who follows the dictations of material intelligence and material consciousness will never be happy. One must judiciously understand the activities of material nature, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 3:27. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by nature. Although one follows the dictations of material nature, he happily thinks himself the master or husband of material nature. Scientists, for example, try to be the masters of material nature, life after life, not caring to understand the Supreme Person, under whose direction everything within this material world is moving. Trying to be the masters of material nature, They are imitation gods who declare to the public that scientific advancement will one day be able to avoid the so-called control of God. In fact, however, the living being, unable to control the rulings of God, is forced to associate with the prostitute of polluted intelligence and accept various material bodies. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 13.22, Purusha prakritisto hi bhumte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangosya sarasadyoni janmasu. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil amongst various species. If one fully engages in temporary fruitive activities and does not solve this real problem, then what profit will he gain? Shristapyaya karmayam Vela kulantavegitam mattasya tam avegyasya kema sat karma bhir bhavet. Nārada Muni had said that there is a river flowing in both directions. The Haryaśvas understood the purport of this statement. Material nature functions in two ways, by creation and dissolution. Thus the river of material nature flows both ways. A living entity who unknowingly falls in this river is submerged in its waves, and since the current is swift near to the banks of the river, he is unable to get out. What will be the benefit of performing fruitive activities in the river of Maya? One second. Alright. Purport. One may be submerged in the waves of the river of Maya, but one must also get free from the waves by coming to the banks of knowledge and austerity. Near these banks, Near these banks, however, the waves are very strong. If one does not understand how he is being tossed by the waves, but simply engages in temporary fruitive activities, what benefit will he derive? In the Brahma Samhita 554, there is this statement: Shrishti Sthiti Pralaya Sadhana Shakti Reka Chayeva Yasa Bhavanani Bhivarti Durga. The Maya Shakti, Durga, is in charge of Shrishti, Sthiti, and Pralaya, creation and dissolution. And she acts under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Maya Dakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. That's Bhagavad Gita 9.10. When one falls in the river of nescience, he is always tossed here and there by the waves. But the same Maya can also save him when he surrenders to Krishna or becomes Krishna conscious. Krishna consciousness is knowledge and austerity. A Krishna conscious person takes knowledge from the Vedic literature, and at the same time, he must practice austerities. To attain freedom from material life, one must take to Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, if one very busily engages in so-called advancement of science, what benefit will he derive? If one is carried away by the waves of nature, what is the meaning of being a great scientist or philosopher? Mundane science and philosophy are also material creations. One must understand how Maya works and how one can be released from the tossing waves of the river of nescience. That is one's first duty. Panchavinshati tattvanam purushod darpana adhyatmam abudasyeha kem asat karma bhir bhavet. Nārada Muni had said that there is a house made of 25 elements. The Haryaśvas understood this analogy. The Supreme Lord is the reservoir of the 25 elements, and as the Supreme Being, the conductor of cause and effect, he causes their manifestation. If one engages in temporary fruitive activities, not knowing that Supreme Person, What benefit will he derive? Purport. Philosophers and scientists conduct scholarly research to find the original cause, but they should do so scientifically, not whimsically or through fantastic theories. The science of the original cause is explained in various Vedic literatures, Atato Brahmajigyasa and Janma Dasya Yataha. Those are the two first sutras of Vedanta Sutra. The Vedanta Sutra explains that one should inquire about the Supreme Soul. Such an inquiry about the Supreme is called Brahma Jigyasa. The absolute truth, Tattva, is explained in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1-11. Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yajñanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdate. Learned transcendentalists who know about the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. The absolute truth appears to neophytes as impersonal Brahman and to advanced mystic yogis as Paramatma, the Supersoul. But devotees who are further advanced understand the absolute truth as the Supreme Lord Vishnu. This material cosmic manifestation is an expansion of the energy of Lord Krishna, or Lord Vishnu. Ekadesha sitasyagne jyotsna vistarini yata parasya brahmana shaktis tatedam akilam jagat. Whatever we see in this world is but an expansion of various energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is like fire that spreads illumination for a long distance, although it is situated in one place. It's from the Vishnu Puran. The entire cosmic manifestation is an expansion of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, if one does not conduct research to find the supreme cause, but instead falsely engages in frivolous temporary activities, what is the use of demanding recognition as an important scientist or philosopher? If one does not know the ultimate cause, what is the use of his scientific and philosophical research? The Purusha, the original person, Bhagavan Vishnu, can be understood only by devotional service. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvataha. Bhagavad Gita 1855. Only by devotional service can one understand the Supreme Person, who is behind everything. One must try to understand that the material elements are the separated inferior energy of the Lord, and that the living entity is the Lord's spiritual energy. Whatever we experience, including matter and the spirit soul, the living force, is but a combination of two energies of Lord Vishnu, the inferior energy and the superior energy. One should seriously study the facts concerning creation, maintenance, and devastation, as well as the permanent place from which one never need return, yad gatva na nivartante. Human society should study this, but instead of culturing such knowledge, people are attracted to temporary happiness and sense gratification, culminating in bottomless, topless passion. There is no profit in such activities. One must engage himself in the Krishna consciousness movement. How much time is left? 5 minutes. Okay, and we have 2 verses. Aishvaryam shashtamutsrija bandha mokshanudarshanam vivikta padamagyaya kem asat karma bir bhavet. Narad Muni had spoken of a swan. This swan is explained in this verse. The Vedic literatures, Shastras, vividly describe how to understand the Supreme Lord, the source of all material and spiritual energy. Indeed, they elaborately explain these two energies. The swan, the Hamsa, is one who discriminates between matter and spirit, who accepts the essence of everything, and who explains the means of bondage and the means of liberation. The words of scriptures consist of variegated vibrations. If a foolish rascal leaves aside the study of these shastras to engage in temporary activities, what will be the result? Purport. The Krishna consciousness movement is very eager to present Vedic literature in modern languages, especially in Western languages such as English, French, and German. The leaders of the Western world, the Americans and Europeans, have become the idols of modern civilization because the Western people are very sophisticated in temporary activities for the advancement of material civilization. A sane man, however, can see that all such grand activities, although perhaps very important for temporary life, have nothing to do with eternal life. The entire world is imitating the materialistic civilization of the West, and therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement is very much interested in giving the Western people knowledge by translating the original Sanskrit Vedic literatures into Western languages. The word Vivikta Padam refers to the path of logical discourses concerning the aim of life. If one does not discuss that which is important in life, one is put into darkness and must struggle for existence. What then is the benefit of his advancement in knowledge? The people of the West are seeing their students becoming hippies, despite gorgeous arrangements for university education. The Krishna consciousness movement, however, is trying to convert misguided, drug-addicted students to the service of Krishna and engage them in the best welfare activities for human society. Kala chakram bhramitikshnam sarvam nishkarshayaj jagat swatantram abhudasyeha kema sat karma bhir bhavet. This is the last verse. Just checking, still connected. Yes, it is. Nārada Muni had spoken of a physical object made of sharp blades and thunderbolts. The Haryaśvas understood this allegory as follows. Eternal time moves very sharply, as if made of razors and thunderbolts. Uninterrupted and fully independent, it drives the activities of the entire world. If one does not try to study the eternal element of time, what benefit can he derive from performing temporary material activities? Purport. This verse explains the words Shora Pavyam Swayam Prami, which especially refer to the orbits of eternal time. It is said that time and tide wait for no man. According to the moral instructions of the great politician Chanakya Pandit, Ayusha Kshana Ekopi na labhya swarnakotivi. Nachen nirar takam niti ka chahanis tatodhika. Even a moment of one's lifetime could not be returned in exchange for millions of dollars. Therefore, one should consider how much loss one suffers if he wastes even a moment of his life for nothing. Living like an animal, not understanding the goal of life, one foolishly thinks that there is no eternity and that his lifespan of 50, 60, or at the most 100 years is everything. This is the greatest foolishness. Time is eternal, and in the material world, one passes through different phases of his eternal life. Time is compared herein to a sharp razor. A razor is meant to shave the hair from one's face, but if not carefully handled, the razor will cause disaster. One is advised not to create a disaster by misusing his lifetime. One should be extremely careful to utilize the span of his life for spiritual realization, or Krishna consciousness. And so we'll read, let's see what time it is. I just turned 8 o'clock, okay. So we will continue on from verse 20 tomorrow. I think this is, let's see, 20 and 21. That's the end of this section. What do those two verses say? So in verse 20 we'll hear, one must accept the instructions of Shastra, the original father which teaches liberation. And then the Haryaśvas all reached the same conclusion. They circumambulated Nārada Muni and followed the path by which one never returns to this material world. Then Nārada Muni traveled with his mind fixed on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, playing musical notes in glorification of Lord Krishna. Then Daksha lamented upon hearing about the renunciation of the Haryaśvas. Brahma pacified him, and he begot another 1,000 sons called the Shalashvas. Okay, so that's what we're going to read about tomorrow. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. जय श्री श्री गुरु गौरांग गंधाविक गिरिधारी शिष्य राधा विनोद बिहारी जू की जय श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन जू की जय नितिल प्रविष्ट विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतस्मद श्री भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जय नितिल प्रविष्ट विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतस्मद श्री भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय नितिल प्रविष्ट विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतस्मद श्री भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद की जय नितिल प्रविष्ट महाभागवत श्री गोरक्षरस बाबाजी महाराज की जय नितिल प्रविष्ट श्री सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय नितिल प्रविष्ट वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबाजी महाराज की जय श्री रूप गौरिया गुरु वार्ग की जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल पतदास रघुनाथ शार गोसाई प्रभु की जय श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जय नाम चय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदत्त गिरिराज महाराज की जय श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय श्री भक्ति देवी की जय श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जय श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री नारद ऋषि की जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्-भागवतम की जय श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवाय कृष्ण भक्ति परदेवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः धन्यवाद प्रणाम Oh, Rasangi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Haribol. Thank you for joining. And Dandavat Pranams to everybody else. Hare Krishna. See you either tonight or tonight. I'm going to be reading from Nectar of Devotion on my YouTube page, not on Facebook. If you want to join that, then that will be in 11 hours from now. I'll start 7 p.m. India time. Right now it's 8 a.m. India time, so 7 p.m., 11 hours. Alright, Haribol. But yeah, not on Facebook, on YouTube. Okay, Haribol.